Hello, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to Berlinale Talents 2015, a space discovery, and to Crossroads to Cultures, Cinemas in the Arab World. We're happy you be here, and we'll talk today about how local cinemas are kind of re-emerging as bustling hubs of alternative culture, and about the difficulties of transferring Arab culture to spaces outside of the Arab world. But before we're going to start, I'd like to introduce you to our wonderful experts for this session. On the right side, on my right side, your left side, you will find Youssef Shazli, who has worked in research and development before entering the cinema industry, and currently managing two of MISR international film initiatives, the Panorama of the European Film and Zavia. Next to him you'll find Hania Mroué, founding member of the Cinema Association Beirut DC, and founder and director of Metropolis Art Cinema, as well as director of Talents Beirut. Then we have Irit Neidhardt, founder and head of MacFilm, a distribution and co-production company for films from the Middle East and North Africa, and author of various articles on subjects related to cinema and the Middle East. And last but not least, our wonderful moderator for this session, Jean-Pierre Rehm, French film theorist, critic, and director of Fit Marseille. And we're happy to have this panel in cooperation with Talents Beirut and the Robert Bosch Stiftung. Enjoy.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be there again in Berlin, and within the frame of Berlin Talents. I think it's a great initiative, and I'm very happy in a way to keep on with the story also where Metropolis, Hania were involved last September, starting Talent Beirut. Maybe we will be able to say a few words about it. So for me, maybe the best is that each of our great guests could describe their structure, their adventure, because I'm convinced, but maybe I'm wrong, or maybe it needs to be discussed, that when we say Arab world, I'm not sure there's such a thing as a united perspective, especially in linked to this question of broadcasting and how you share with the audience. I'm not sure the audience have the same habits if you compare with, I don't know, Syria today, or Egypt, or Beirut, or Lebanon. And I think that's something that we can talk about, how the varied experiences. And of course we know that maybe since the foundation of Abu Dhabi Film Festival, Doha Film Festival, and also Doha Film Fund, there was an obvious birth of production in the Middle East. But then the question, of course, is how is it distributed, and how does it reach a local audience? How does it reach a regional audience? I think we all know that sometimes traveling from neighbor countries in the Middle East is not that easy. And also, what does it mean that these films are meeting an international and European audience? Is there any compromise here? We were talking about that just before. So maybe Youssef, can you start, because you were telling me that Zawa is very young, actually only 10 months. Maybe you can say, how did it shift from Panorama, and what was the need, who were the people behind, and how is also, because I think that's important, the economical viability of this place, what are the perspectives, and also how is this place, let's say, what is the model of this place? Is it a social model? Is it, well?
I want to first thank the Berlinale Talents for this wonderful invitation. I remember that I came to Berlin last February, and Zavia actually wasn't born yet. We were still looking for funds and looking for new partners and even for films to be distributed, but of course trying to negotiate some fairer prices because we were still very, inexistent. And that here we are a year later, and I'm here discussing a project that is only 10 months old, and so it's a bit overwhelming. It's a bit nice to be here and to be able to share this experience. We started with the panorama of the European film. Actually, I did not, but it was Marianne Khouri 10 years ago. The idea was that European films did not have access to the Egyptian film market. And so the idea was quite simply to create a festival and to show some European films in Cairo and present these films to the Egyptian audience. The festival grew over the years. It started with one screen, 1 week, and about 20 films, until it reached its 7th edition last year, where it had 3 screens, 10 days, and more than 50 films, and between 10,000 and 15,000 admissions. So it was, for us, it was very important to take maybe a step further in this work, and from this came the idea to create a space, a permanent space for these films. So a cinema that is operating every day, all day, and we started working on this. We started looking for a place, for a cinema that we can operate ourselves, do the programming, do everything. We were lucky enough to find one that we were able to convince the cinema owners to give us a chance to operate it ourselves. The location of the cinema is ideal for us because it's located in downtown Cairo, very central, very accessible, and so it was. This is how we started. The idea was quite simply to create a new platform for these films that are not shown on the big screen in Cairo. There are films that are usually shown in very limited screenings in, for example, cultural centers or small gatherings, and these films were shown once or twice, and if you miss it, then you can't see it again. And the idea was to go from this and to a higher level a bit, and try to give these films more justice on the big screen with the good image, good sound, and also create commercial value for these films. That the idea that these directors can actually make a bit of money out of these films, and that maybe somehow create a more sustainable model. So we started. It was very difficult at the beginning. We had limited funds, but we did what we have, and it surprisingly picked up very quickly. I think there is a real demand for this in Cairo. There is a very important cinema scene. There is a lot of people love to go to cinema. People love to go watch good movies, and this didn't exist before. All the cinemas are very limited with the same programming. Basically, all American blockbusters and local Egyptian local blockbusters. There wasn't much diversity, in the programming. So this was new. This was new, and I think the fact that it was in an actual cinema, not in like within another institution like a university or something, a public institution. This made the difference. So yeah, this is the project.
But then for the choice of the films, because you said these films, can you describe the kind of films that you're saying?
The very basic idea was to show films that do not have access to the Egyptian market. So it could be anything. We didn't have any restrictions to what kind of genres or countries or regions. It was more anything that we thought was worth showing, and is not showing in Cairo, why not? So, but I mean, so there is an attempt to be as diverse as possible in terms of genres, in terms of countries, regions. So there is, of course, a very strong Egyptian presence of films Egyptian films that are not usually released in Egyptian cinemas. So mainly documentaries. Or shorts or fictions that are more difficult. but also regional films and from anywhere else in the world. We have more access to Europe, but we're also trying to explore new regions like Southeast Asia, Latin America. These countries have no reach whatsoever in the Egyptian market. So, and then of course, because we were new to this, we knew how to program a festival, but not a cinema. And it's very different.
Can you tell?
Yes, I mean,
but also when you were mentioning Egyptian and regional films, so you're meaning like brand new or like really more? I mean, so older or? The program
is our programming is split into different directions. So one thing we did is the theatrical releases. This was new for us to release a film theatrically for a week or 2 or 3, which is playing every day, 4 times a day. This was completely new in Cairo, and even the audience was not used to that at first. Like to be able to watch this film whenever they wanted, because there was always this one-time screening, a one-time special screening. So for releases, we focus more on new films, new productions, 2013, 14, 15. No, we don't go older than that. But also part of our programming is dedicated to special events. So anything from retrospectives to focuses on specific genres or countries. Festivals, and this of course includes films that can be new, old, it can be a very diverse selection. And also what we also try to do is we host other institutions, so other festivals, other groups that have their own programming but actually need a venue for these films. And this was something that worked pretty well, because there are a lot of other things happening in Cairo. And usually these groups lacked a venue, and so we were able to offer this. And this is good for us because it makes our program even more diverse. So yeah.
Because on the pictures that we saw, it seems like a festival mood, and also Q&A. So would you, like, when you say you're screening Egyptian film, for instance, would filmmaker be there? And how do you think the screening in that sense? Again, my question was like on one hand economy, and the other what is the model for you? And so the other hand would be sociability. Can you?
Of course, this idea of having interaction with the audience, encouraging Q&A sessions was very important to us. Every time we have an Egyptian film showing, we try to, even if whether it's a release or a special screening, we get in the director or the crew, and they're always happy to do that, to discuss the film, and this always encourages people to. We're trying to promote our films as much as we can, and it's not always easy. So the idea of having someone from the film present and talk about it, it always encourages more people to attend. We do that. It works. When we do special events, even more so, it takes the mood of a festival. Some of our most successful events were retrospectives of Egyptian filmmakers. We did one on Youssef, and we did another one recently on Dawood Abdel, and it was packed every day. And so even in those events, we try to, in Shaheen, for example, every day there was someone that worked on this specific film with Shaheen that would come and discuss his experience. Dawood was here every day for his films, and he was glad to do it. So this idea of interacting between the audience and the filmmakers is very important to us, and it was something that started during the panorama. In terms of the viability, it's difficult. It's very difficult because we're talking very small numbers. Our tickets.
There's only one venue here, right?
The cinema itself is 3 screens.
Okay, and how many seats each?
So there's 400, 200, and 175. But we're only operating 1 screen. And the screen we're operating, we were lucky enough that we were able to find a hall that is a bit isolated from the 2 others, that leads to another space and another entrance. Actually, it was the emergency exit of the cinema. So we took this exit and we transformed it into our own entrance, and we did our own box office, separate from the other side of the cinema, and our own cafeteria and our own space that led to our hall. So a lot of people.
That means that you're hosted by an owner who has then exactly. 2 other. Can you comment? Because this is a question maybe we'll have to talk also with Hania. How do you deal, and also the image for the audience? How can you be recognized, and can you talk about the programming beside in the same venue? How does it go?
I think the fact that we are present in commercial cinema is very, very interesting. The relationship between our screen and the two others always fascinates me.
Can you say more?
Because first of all, a lot of people, because we created the space that is independent from the two other screens, so a lot of people actually don't know that we are part of the same cinema. Like they thought that we created a new cinema, because they don't see the other side. They come in from this exit, the entrance, they have the cafeteria, they go to film, and then they get out from the same entrance. So they don't. Sometimes they're confused. They don't know if it's the same cinema or a different one. But the relationship with the cinema owners is very challenging because they don't have the same spirit as we do. They see things very differently, mostly in numbers. So
I'm surprised.
So obviously it was very hard to convince them at the beginning that we wanted to operate the screen, and it took a really long time. And once we got a first deal, it was a very bad deal actually, and it's still a very bad deal, but they gave us the chance to try it out. But
sorry, just can you? I mean, what did you do? The choice of like choosing one venue rather than, let's say, mingling. You know, saying we can be operating in whatever venue because maybe we would need 400 seats this time, and also to blur, let's say, the difference between the different types of programs.
You mean in the same cinema? Like
yeah.
It was already very hard to get one screen. I don't think we would have been able to get the three. Impossible.
Well, not the three, but moving from one to the other.
The thing is, we have the smallest hall, and this was the easiest to get. The two others are bigger, and we were still small, and we are still small, and we don't really feel like we need all these seats sometimes. Sometimes we do when we're a full house and it's a very exciting screening and people can't enter because it's sold out, then we feel like we need a bigger venue. And also sometimes we don't. We're happy with what we have. But yes, but going back to this point of the relationship with the cinema owners, it changed a lot with time, because when we started, obviously the beginning was slow, it was hard, not a lot of people knew about us, but it picked up quite quickly. And at the beginning, they actually wanted to kick us out. Like it was didn't last very long. We had a 6 months deal, the first deal, and
why? Because he was. Since you were paying the money, obviously. So why?
No, we were not paying money.
Oh, okay, that's it.
No, we have a different. I know Hania has a different deal with their cinema owners. I think we don't pay rent. We share revenues. Okay. So the better we do, the more they're happy. So so they didn't feel very enthusiastic about the project, and they actually wanted us out. But and we had a 6 months deal. That was the first deal we had, and at the 4th month, that they made us understand in some indirect ways that after the 6 months we were out. And on the 5th month, we did the box office record. We had I don't know what it was, but I think it was related to our programming that was special this month. And we did 3 times the numbers that we used to do, and actually our numbers were better than the 2 other cinemas.
Excellent.
So obviously from there the whole dynamic changed. The relationship changed completely. We
became friends.
We became friends, and now they're happy because I mean their cinema is not working very well, and our is working better. So it worked at the end, but obviously it's very unstable. We don't know we renewed the 1-year contract, but 1 year is nothing. We don't know after this year where we will be, what we'll be doing, if we're gonna move, if we're gonna stay, if we're gonna. At some point, I think we will have to. We need our own venue. This is the only way we can survive.
You mean that this is your perspective? Like
yeah, of
move
course.
And have your place of your own.
Of course, because we want to be sustainable. We want to depend on our box office. Basically, we don't want to depend on funds, on sponsors. Right now, that's what we're doing, because we have a team working and no one's volunteering. They're all either full-time or part-time jobs. We have running costs. We purchase the films, and it's very expensive. Promotion, marketing, everything is costly. So we mostly depend on sponsors and funds right now. But at some point...
What do you mean you purchase the films? It's for distribution, but that's what you were explaining.
Either distribution or screening fees for events. For events, it's more screening fees, like a festival. For distribution, it's more of a distribution deal with an MG or not, but usually because we are new and distributors don't really want to take risks with us, so they make us pay MGs. And the MGs are not very low, so it's hard to sustain it. But I think that with time, the numbers, if they keep growing like that, and we do manage to have our own venue, then I don't see why it can't work.
So I don't know, maybe it's a myth, or it was a myth, but I had the feeling that Egypt was so well known as movie lovers, and everybody would be moviegoers. So did you identify, I mean, did you wish to do that? And if you didn't do it, did you have an idea of who's coming to your venue now? And what do you think? Because I think it's interesting, the relation between the two. And I'm surprised that you decided, okay, no, we should split. And in a way, it's to say we can't mix. So can you comment on that?
No, it wasn't really that we can't mix. Actually, our goal was that people who didn't know us but knew the cinema and would go to watch a certain film, and that why not decide that they're gonna go see our film because maybe they wanted to see a foreign film, for example, not an Egyptian one, and the two commercial venue screens had Egyptian films, and we had a foreign one, so why not come see them? And it's actually what happened. And this is what makes me happy, very happy, is that when is this mix that happens, and we do have people coming in that don't know about us, don't know anything. What is Zawiya? What is this place? I have never heard of it, but are actually going to the Odeon, to the cinema Odeon, and discovering us for the first time. But talking about our audience, I had a very when we started, I thought that we would be very niche. We would be that our main core audience would be very intellectual, very cinephile, very people that are already involved in the industry and all that. But actually, I was very wrong about this. Our audience is actually kind of mainstream. It's very diverse, very young, and people that actually go to any cinemas also come to us because the film showing here is not showing anywhere else. And but obviously every event, every screening attracts a very different audience. For a retrospective of a director, we have an audience. For a theatrical release of a semi-commercial film, we would have another audience. And my goal is that these audiences would mix at some point. Like someone who'd be interested in watching a certain film would actually go see another film that maybe is less accessible and more difficult to watch. But with time, this is what we're trying to do. Yeah. But we have to do it gradually. I believe that when it's done very radically, okay, we're art house cinema, we have to screen only very art house films and nothing else. I don't think it will work that way. This is why our program is a mix of semi-commercial films, more art house films, more less accessible. It's a mix, and I think this is our approach to the programming.
How do you advertise? Because when you say semi-commercial, how does it work?
Also the definition of what is art house and what is commercial in Egypt is completely different from here, for example. Because we can have, I mean, there can be a European blockbuster in Germany or in France that can be considered art house to us, or at least alternative, because it's a film that wouldn't be shown in the commercial cinemas, and for us it would be an alternative film. So the definition of the words are very different. What was the question?
I don't remember, but I have another one. I was surprised because we're speaking about Arab film here, and when you said that in the cinema the two other venues were playing Egyptian films and you had a foreign film, and that's where the audience goes. So
exactly.
It's surprising.
Yeah, it happens. Sometimes it happens that we're the ones with the foreign film and they're the ones with two Egyptian films, and in Egypt sometimes people go to cinema, they don't really know what they want to watch. They just have this idea, okay, I want to see an American film now. This is how far it goes. So it works sometimes.
Okay, and do you mean to go along with, let's say, a magazine or something? Do you?
Our promotion is very, honestly, maybe it's our weakest point because we have very limited means. And we try to do as much as we can with what we have. So obviously for us, social media is very, very important. It's our main source of promotion. Online, our website, and other platforms. We created partnerships with media sponsors, so media sponsors like TV channel or radio or web blogs, and why partnerships? Because we can't afford to pay advertising, so we do some promotion for them, they do some promotion for us, and it works. It's a good model. We don't really put any money in ads because we don't have any, and maybe one day we can increase our promotion, do more stronger marketing campaigns, but for now we mainly rely on people talking to each other, and it's working this way. Like I'm really surprised at how many people know about it in Cairo. I bump into people all the time that I don't know, never met, and they talk to me about Zawiya, like that, and it makes me really happy. But I honestly, none of us expected that it would pick up this quickly, so I hope it will continue.
And do you feel you have a mission after the revolution, more or less? Like, do you feel involved with this? Do you think about it, or it's just like it could have been otherwise politically, and the programming would have been the same? How do you take that into consideration?
Yeah, I think it was a mission before or after the revolution. There was a real need for a new platform, a new space that was exposing people to different type of cinema, and this need existed a long time ago, and it still exists today. The revolution, or I don't like to call it the revolution, but the events that happened, the uprising, maybe politically didn't do much to the country, but on a cultural level did a lot and opened a lot of doors for people to work more and contribute on this level. And this is what we're doing. This is maybe the part that we're playing in this. So yeah, definitely there is a feeling that we need to do this. It's not only something that we like and we are passionate about, but it's also a mission, exactly. And I think this is where it helped us. The spirit and the culture scene after 2011 changed a lot. A lot of people were more motivated to do new projects, new initiatives, new ideas, and it was good timing, I guess, to start this project. And because actually there was another attempt a few years ago, in 2009, I think, but it did not work. I wasn't involved in it, but maybe I think the timing was wrong, the choice of venue was wrong, the few things played into consideration, but now, yeah, it changed, and hopefully it will keep going that way.
And again, because this is a venue in Cairo, meaning, of course, the capital, do you have like intention of imagining a way to spread the programming in other cities, but also throughout the country? Because there've been, you might know, this Caravane du Documentaire in Morocco, and also other experiences in Tunisia of traveling programming. So did you think about that?
We do that. From the very beginning, this audience development aspect was very important to us. There was an idea from the start that the films that we're showing in our venue should travel outside of the venue and to other venues, be it in Cairo or outside of Cairo. So because Cairo is huge and there are a lot of different neighborhoods, different areas, and that we can also utilize this, but also outside of Cairo was very important. So what we did is created small partnerships with young students in different cities that are very passionate about cinema, and they're actually doing what we're doing in Cairo in their cities, but on a smaller scale. So, for example,
with your help, or
with our help, we give them we provide the films. So because we get the rights of the films for the entire country. So what we do is that we provide them with the program, actually a selection of films. They get to do everything else. They get to choose the films that they want. They get to go and meet, bargain with cinema owners in their cities so that they can screen the films, and they get to do the promotion, the marketing, everything. What happens is that for example, we agree that they will show twice a month, for example, 2 films a month. That's how we operate on a daily basis, but obviously in other cities it's a bit more difficult to do that. So they take a cinema for a day, for example, twice a month, and they show the same films that we're showing, but us it shows like 40, 50 times, them it shows twice. We have this experience with Tanta and Alexandria so far, and it's working really well, especially with Tanta. And we're trying to expand to more and more cities, and we're doing this on a model that is, we want them to be independent from us. We don't want to be doing us the job there, because they know their public, they know their audience and the context much more than we do. So the idea is to create partnerships with people that are based there, and just we would be providing films, and they would do the rest. And even on a financial level, to make it sustainable that way, in the sense that they sell tickets there, and they take the benefits from the tickets, and they cover their own costs like that.
Okay, so what format is there? You screening and
this is a very good question, because this is this is the main challenge with the project of expanding outside of Cairo. It's the format, it's the technical aspect, because we screen in DCP. In our cinema, we're equipped with DCP and all the 35 and Blu-ray and laptop and all that stuff, but mainly DCP. And most of the films that come to us come in DCP. When we want to show these same films in these other venues, this is where it becomes very difficult, because they're not equipped in DCP. They're not equipped in DCP. They have a projector and a Blu-ray, for example, or 35 millimeter, and the films that we have are not available in that format, because either they're available as screeners for working copies, but not screening copies, and or for example, a copy but doesn't have the Arabic subtitles, whereas the DCP has the Arabic subtitles. So every film, there's a problem with that, and this is the main challenge. I don't think these cinemas outside of Cairo will be equipped with DCP anytime soon. So this is something we have to work on. It's difficult, and it's the main challenge. But there are ways around it. There are ways. We try to. Like, some films we don't have this problem, because, for example, we do receive other formats along with the DCP, and for other films that we don't have that, we try to play around with it, try to find alternative ways of creating Blu-rays, for example, and with Arabic, creating subtitling. But for now, it's very costly. It's very costly to do that, so we have to keep working on it.
Youssef, thank you. So, Hania, can you please describe this wonderful experience of yours in Metropolis, where I was lucky to go several times in Beirut?
Yes, and I'm very lucky that you addressed your questions to Youssef, because he said everything. I can only change Cairo with Beirut and Zawiya Metropolis, and that's it. It's exactly the same model, except that we are 9 years old, but we still have the same challenges as a 9-month-old cinema. So yes, it's pretty much the same story, except that we started in a very small theater, 100 seats, maybe something like that, or a little bit smaller. And we had the same difficulties as that Youssef described, until 2 years later we had a real audience, and we felt that it was time to move to a bigger space. And
you mean you built this audience throughout the years?
Yes, we built this, but it is an audience that was already there, and I prefer to say we found, and they found us. It's an audience that was built throughout the years because of all the festivals that were happening in the city. So there was a need, and what we did is just we offered a space that can where people can come regularly, and they know most of the time they came not really knowing what was showing, but it doesn't matter. That they know that this is like, for Lebanese audience, it was an ongoing festival, and this is what we try to do, literally, like every week a festival. Make it an event, make it a social event for people to come, to meet, to watch anything. It doesn't matter, but what matters more is maybe the discussion that's going to happen afterwards. So this is how it all started, and then at some point it became very small, and there was this theater where we are right now. It was an old cinema. that is not functioning anymore because all cinemas in Beirut are part of a commercial a mall. Yes, a mall. So, so there has to be a mall to have a cinema, and free parking, and food.
It's important.
And shopping. We have none of this. So, so this cinema was a little bit, the owners didn't really know what to do with it. They had a genius idea to turn it into a VIP cinema, which means a place where you have like big couches, you can sleep and eat sushi and
champagne, no?
And champagne, and eventually watch a film if you feel like it. So, but it was costly. So, so we came at the right moment and we said, it's okay, you don't have to make this investment. We will rent it and we will turn it into an art house cinema. They thought, and they still think, that we are fool and stupid to do this. And they are always afraid that they don't really understand what we're doing there, so they charge us a high rent, and this gives them the peace of mind. You do whatever you want, we don't care. And we have to worry about, yeah, but not only finding the films, but also finding the audience and finding the money to sustain this place. And I can say the biggest challenge in the beginning was finding films, which is why we created a distribution company and we became also distributors.
When you say finding films, it's not programming, it's like actually finding the prints and
both, because we started saying something very interesting, which is, when we talk about the Arab world, people think that, oh, they speak the same language, it's so beautiful, they exchange films. It's totally not the case. Even the language is a challenge. I mean, we don't understand necessarily the different dialects in the region, but also films do not circulate in this region at all. So having access to Arab films was very challenging, and in any case, Arab films do not have any distribution. So if you want to show an Arab film, you have to go directly to the director and try to convince him, etc. So it was a hassle to have access to Arab films. European films are much easier, but more expensive. And
they're all subtitled in...
yes, we have to subtitle the films, not necessarily in Arabic. French and English can also work. But the thing is that either the films do not have distributors for the Middle East, or they do, but the distributors, they just buy the films for their own pleasure, and they don't plan on releasing them. Okay, I'm kidding. They do sell them to television and they make a lot of profit, but for them, theatrical release is something that they don't even think about. So when we try to program a film, whether for a festival or to release it, we go to the distributor and he said, yes, I have the rights, but I don't have the material. Like nothing, not even a DVD, nothing. And sometimes they don't even watch the films. So, really, do I have this film? And, yeah, you have it. It won the Palme d'Or last week. So, yeah. So, so that's how we became distributors ourselves. And in the beginning, we bought films only to release them at Metropolis. But thank God, Zawiya exists now, and there are other small spaces in the Arab world that are opening, and now we can think about, I don't know if I can call it an Arab market, but hopefully this is what we're aiming for, to create an Arab market, an alternative market, whatever, to show our films, to circulate those films. And both Zawiya and Metropolis are part of a network called the Network of Arab Art House Screens, NAS, and it is through this network that we are trying also to distribute or to circulate our films.
Hania, can you tell us how you choose the films you're going to distribute? On what base, and how many films you have so far, and what is the rhythm of their screenings?
Okay, we have 2 screens at the cinema. One of them, they both almost 270 seats each, and one of them is fully dedicated to festivals. We still organize like one festival or event or film week or whatever, retrospective, almost every week. So one screen is dedicated for that. The other one is for theatrical releases. Sometimes we manage to get films from what is available on the market, and we need to buy maybe 5 or 6 films per year to fill our program.
Would they be Arab films or?
That's our aim, but we don't always manage to get Arab films. It's very difficult. We always have
Difficult?
Lebanese films.
Why?
Difficult why? Because there are many reasons, but mainly because Arab films don't work theatrically. I mean, it's we know it. It's not. I'm not saying anything it's spectacular. It's the audience
don't attract
is
the
not
audience.
Really, no, the audience is for the audience. Those films are festival films. So if you show an Arab film in a festival, they would die to get a ticket, literally. I mean, we can do 2-3 screenings. They'll be all packed, full house. The next day, we release the film, and nobody shows up. So for people, these are festival films. They are not really used to the idea of going to a regular screening, buying. Maybe it's not the case for Palestinian films. For instance, now we're showing Omar, my Hania Abu Asad, and it's doing pretty well. But let's say a Moroccan film, Tunisian film, that is really very, very difficult. So unfortunately, that's why when we buy films, we try to focus more on Lebanese, let's say Egyptian, Palestinian films, when we talk about Arab films. Other than that, sometimes we buy films, but only for VOD. But we are very clear about it from the beginning with the producers and the sales agent that, okay, we can try to buy these films, but we will show it in festivals, and then it will go directly to either DVD or VOD or television or whatever. So
it means you're dealing also with a VOD platform.
Yes, definitely. And we do buy also international titles. We bought Separation. We're having now Mummy, Xavier Dolan. So yeah.
And can you tell us more about precisely this format circulation? We spoke a bit about DVD, but then VOD and DVD, as you mentioned. I mean, how?
Yes.
Because then it's a lot of work.
VOD is growing a lot. It's not yet as developed as in the US or maybe in Europe, but it is growing slowly. It's a growing market. There are more and more platforms that are interested in Arab titles and independent titles, because when we say Arab titles for in television market or even VOD, they immediately mean Egyptian blockbusters. Sorry, I would edit this. It's Egyptian blockbusters. So now they are looking for different content. They are also looking for some documentaries, some films from North Africa, for independent work. So this is something that is still now growing. I don't know where it will lead. I don't know if there's really an audience, if people like to watch films at home on their computers, whatever. But I think the younger generation, yes, we can reach them through VOD. The older generation, no, they still like, fortunately, to come to the cinema. Although our audience, just like Youssef just said, our audience is pretty young. So I think there's still some charm in people getting together in the cinema.
And regarding VOD, did you intend again to make a study on the people who are getting on it, and is it only Lebanese?
The
VOD.
The VOD platforms.
Yeah.
I don't have any information, any data, yes, about it, but
you could actually.
It is really the very beginning,
Okay.
so I cannot tell now. Even the platforms that are buying, some of them didn't start operating yet. They're just buying content and they will start operating maybe in the coming month or so.
Thank you, Hania. Irit, can you tell us about your story?
My story?
I mean, relating to this at least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm running a distribution company which is doing theatrical releases in Germany, picking 1 and sometimes 2 films a year in order not to compete with myself, because it's not only in the Arab countries that Arab films are hard to get the theatrical audience. It's the same, of course, in Germany. It's people go when it's a special event. The same thing Hania said. Or for some time it worked to release films that met subjects that were hot in the news in Germany, but many times, and this is something I founded the distribution company in 2002, and since 2002 so many things have changed, but what is constant is that audiences who know the Arab world tell me, I saw the film but it was disappointing because it was not the Palestine I know, it was not the Lebanon I know. When I traveled there, I saw something different. So, and when I say, but this is the Lebanon, the Lebanese director knows, or the Palestinian director wants you to know about, it's not very popular.
Especially that it's every time a different Palestinian director who's speaking in a way. You can have like varied look on the country.
Which for me is the thing. I mean, this when you want to know about a country, this is an option to see something, to experience something, and to hear a voice from this country. And when you see 7 films, you see 7 different voices or images from this country, but this functions sometimes, and special events, when you have 1 week only Lebanon, or 1 week only Palestine, 1 week only Egypt, but it doesn't function over the years, not at all. So this is why I limit the distribution, and from the beginning I knew that the distribution has to sustain itself economically. If it's funding myself a little bit, it's fine, but I need to live on freelance work. Because it's, I mean, no distributor in the world is living only out of distribution. The Hollywood studios have the production and the cinemas, and so I mean, it's nothing that is a very sad thing about distributing Arab films. It's the norm. It's totally normal. So, and I started doing international distribution, which has to do, because this is the space discovery thing, which has to do with space and exactly with the question of circulation you spoke about as well. I started, basically filmmakers made me do the distribution. I was working as a curator and programming mainly Palestinian films when the checkpoints were set, or just after the checkpoints were set up, and we're getting more and more suffocating, and people were of course traveling checkpoints, but what happened with what was promoted as peace agreement is that from Palestinian post office you're not allowed to send mail which is heavier than 100 grams. And beta tapes came up and they're 750 grams, so when you want to send a Palestinian film from Palestine to wherever in the world, you have to illegally cross a checkpoint in order to go to an Israeli post office in order to have the film sent. So, and sometimes I would ask for the same film 3 times a year, and the filmmakers got angry and told me, like, listen, you make us, why do you send the films back? You make us cross these checkpoints. If we cross a checkpoint, we want to go to the beach. We are happy to do this illegally, but we don't want to do this for you. Keep the beta. We make a copy, and please keep the beta. So I started piling betas in my place, and then people would call me from all over the world, or fax was popular by that time, fax me and telling me this, and this director said that his beta is with you, can you please send it? And I said, but I have work, I have family, I cannot sit and be the secretary of everybody who cannot send mail. So one of the filmmakers said, so make a distribution. I said, yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, but then I take the money and I make the rules and we share the revenue. And then also we don't give the films for free and then we can all eat a little bit from it. This is how the distribution came about. But what happened, because I started with this place, which is the most isolated, or was by then, maybe it's true, the most isolated place, I had the international rights and Palestinians can't send their films to other Arab countries, so they asked me to ask the Palestinian films also to the Arab countries, because it's possible from Germany. And this is how I ended up with a lot of films till today with the Arab rights. And I have the same problem like you, that I sit on the Arab rights. I have DVDs, I'm fine with trying to have as many films subtitled into French as well, but it's still a problem how to circulate the films. I was over and over in contact with the Ciné Club Tunisien because they're quite well organized, but due to the uprisings and all the changes in the system all the time, they had changes in the management. It's not a management, in the trust. The trustees were changing, but this is a country I hope to start with, just to give them DVDs and Blu-rays, and then I told them just pirate them yourself for your own system. I cannot provide you with 20 Blu-rays and organize it all, but have them sit with you and then you go. But I don't want to sit with the Arab rights or with the rights of the Arab films and not at least try to let them go.
But again, Hania said that she found an audience, or Metropolis found an audience. I'm not sure. I'm definitely convinced that both, I mean, all of us are building audience, and there's no problem with this. I mean, but you were telling me before the panel that it's very important for you to travel and be seated with the audience in the country of production of the films. And so I was curious, can you say why is it important for you? How is it related to, let's say, distribution somewhere else? And also you were talking about the Q&As with a director. I know that you just bought a very young Syrian living in Beirut now, film director. So can you tell us about that? This moving space.
Yeah, I'm somebody who doesn't believe that film is an international language and you just put it and everybody understands it and it's accessible. I don't understand many films, and when I'm lucky I understand that it's my problem and not the film's problem. But I don't believe at all that film is so uniting and so on.
So good to hear.
And also this experience that people tell me they're disappointed from films because the film doesn't show what the person wanted to see, or that the film is not quite kind of a home video of their last trip or their project they did or so. I see it as kind of a confirmation. Me being the distributor, and I need to promote the film, I do that. Sometimes the texts I get are great, sometimes I write my own text together with the director. I never release texts without having them discussed. Promotion text. But my job is to distribute and to promote films, also a lot in talking about them. And I need to understand where the film comes from. I need to understand how the filmmaker talks about the film, what is important for the filmmaker regarding his or her film. And for me it's also important to understand how the audience of the country of the making relates to it. If it's a film that is causing anger, if it's a film that is that people are happy within the country, within the audience, let's say those who are interested to see it, is it a film people are happy with? Is it a film like who is coming back? There's one very sweet example from Metropolis Cinema, who released The One Man Village, a Lebanese film which I distribute internationally in Hania and the Arab world.
And maybe we'll see a clip of it.
Yeah, and people said in Europe, oh, this is, it's very sweet, but it's also heavy and I don't know what. And then the director told me that his friend went with his little son to Metropolis to see the one-man village, and the son the next day was finishing his homework very fast, and the father didn't understand, and the son said, so we can go back to Metropolis to see the film again. So for me, so it was so nice. Every time I go to Metropolis, I never saw the sun, but I have to think about him every time I go to Metropolis. But this is an example just to say how different you perceive films according to how you grow up, to how your environment is. And for me, it's crucial to know this in order to find the... For me, sometimes it's like the very first mail when you had these tubes and you were just throwing the packages to them, and then under the earth in Berlin they had it. You were just throwing it in big tubes and somebody would open their opening and get this package. For me, sometimes the films, when I submit them to festivals or to special screenings, it's like throwing it somewhere, and I need to know how to throw it there, because I don't necessarily know who is receiving it. But I like to go, if possible, also to screenings of the films I distribute in very different countries, countries I know, countries I didn't know before, just to understand how you can receive such a film. For example, same film, The One Man Village, I'm the co-producer as well, we were invited to Kosovo, the director and me, and we thought this is interesting. It's because also the DocuFest in Prizren, and we thought, okay, this looks, I mean, you see the destruction and the war and everything, and we were curious about the Q&A, and there was no Q&A. People did not talk at all. Somebody tried to ask, but even the atmosphere in the screening was that we didn't want to talk a lot. And then walking in the city, people started looking around and just asking us a short question. We would answer and they would go. And after 3 days, we said, we are so stupid. It's a film about amnesia and not wanting to talk after civil war. So why do we expect that people in a war, in a civil war that just ended, talk? But we needed to be there to understand that the film catalyzed a lot in the people for themselves, and they wanted to talk to us, but alone. It was impossible in a community to do it. So, yeah, this is to answer your question, why it's important to me to be with the film.
An idiomatic film can meet another idioms. And can we maybe have, because you were talking about One Man Village, some images, and I know that Hania, you prepared
2 other films that we are distributing.
Yeah, maybe you can either talk on it or in between. You know, if there's time, because I think you put it on all the same.
Yes, it's. What are we showing now?
What you prepared?
No, it's not. One Man Village.
Oh, this is yours.
Yeah.
So maybe we can have. One Man Village clip, please. Thank you.
انقطع والهم دوبني خود ليلى بنت ضيعتنا ترتاح معها ولا بتتعبني يا بني خود ليلى
sorry for the images, but by that time we were still worrying about piracy, and we did the DVD in a way that it's from the DVD, and we did it in a way that you can't screen it on the big screen. Today I don't care about piracy.
So maybe you can tell how this film circulated, because I think it's 3 or 4 years ago old, no?
Even more. It was in Berlinale 7 years ago. Yeah, it's a long time. And
Simon is an editor. That was his first long feature.
Yeah,
as far as I remember.
Yes, it's his first feature-length film. He's known as an editor in Lebanon. It was quite surprising that the film circulated so well, because when we looked for production money, we didn't find any, because nobody was interested in it, and it can have to do certainly with the way the film was written and so on and pitched, but in the pitchings already, like when you go and promote the film to people with money, they always liked us, but they didn't like the film at all. And so we did the film more or less without money. Beirut DC gave some money into it, and that was it.
Which is an association, it's not even a production,
yes,
regular production company.
And but because we traveled with the films, like with the ideas so much, and people liked us so much, they knew about us, even though they didn't like the film. And in Dubai, the film worked, and it was one of the early editions of the Dubai International Film Festival, when it's also to do with spaces, when it was very, very attractive for people from Europe and from North America to come to Dubai and to be really impressed by the pomp and the oversize of everything. But I realized that the talking about films, or the way people watch films, is very different when it's in an Arab environment, which is so showing off and which doesn't meet the cliche of the Arab world, than trying to defend an Arab project in an entirely European environment. It makes it big. I mean, the power relation is changing. And in Dubai, it did very well, and I simply used, when I understood it, I used the opportunity just to bring Western festival programmers to the screens, and told Arabs, if you like the film, please tell them why it's important for you, because this opportunity you have only in the big Arab festivals. You don't have it elsewhere again.
But again, about in the Arab world, what was its circulation? So except Dubai and Metropolis, was it for a long time like a regular theatrical release?
Yes, we released it theatrically, and it was one of the first documentaries to be released theatrically in Lebanon. And it was a big success, but for 2 reasons. One reason is that people, unlike the people you met, I don't know if they liked me, but they loved the film. So really, it was. So no, but honestly, the film premiered at an Arab film festival, أيام بيروت السينمائية in Beirut, and it was a huge success. And we released it afterwards. So that was one reason. The second reason was censorship. They made us a big favor as well by cutting one sentence from the movie.
So you could advertise on that.
We made a big issue. We were on television. We were at the front page of a newspaper, daily newspaper. Everybody was talking about the film. Personally, I had big problems with censorship. And but that was also positive for the career of the film twice. Not only because it worked theatrically. In fact, what we did is that we showed the film after Simon agreed, the director. We showed it with this a few seconds cut, but the sentence that was cut, we printed on a paper and we distributed to people who were entering the cinema to tell them, okay, this is what you're gonna miss. And yes, by law we are allowed to do this. And also we put this sentence on YouTube, Facebook, wherever, and we had more viewers on Facebook than admissions in the cinema. And I took all those numbers to the censorship and told them, thank you very much. So when we were to sell the film to television and to release it on DVD, they allowed us to show it without cut, yes. So that also helped the career of the film, because otherwise I'm not sure we would have edited the DVD. And we were able also to distribute it in the Arab world, and it did, I think, pretty well, yes.
Okay. So maybe we can watch what you prepared.
Yes,
Hania?
it's 2 films, The Valet and by Ghassan Salhab, and 28 Nights and a Poem, a documentary by Akram Zaatari. We are distributing both films, and they are showing at the Panorama, at the Forum this year.
Both films are here, actually,
Yes.
full length. And the filmmakers are there too.
نحن مش مقتنعين بفقدان الذاكرة تبعك. رحت لل5 تذكر عن 5 جو دغري بعد 4.
رائع في تمثيلك، باهر في تصويرك، تحفة نادرة في إخراجك.
An ongoing festival, you said. It's very obvious. But Ghassan Salhab was on the first image. And the Valley is the second part of a trilogy. The first part was the mountain, and the sea is to come, I think.
Sorry?
The sea was the
river.
third.
The river.
The river, sorry.
Yes.
And it's of course very interesting because both films are on memory. Akram's film is on tools of memory, photos, cinema, beautiful films that I highly recommend. Maybe it's time for sharing with questions. Who wishes?
Does pirating affect you in your work?
No, not at all. Actually, I think, but that's my own theory. I'm not sure other distributors would agree. If you distribute a big film, an American blockbuster, whatever, I think piracy can harm very much the career of the film. But the kind of films that we show, I think our audience, they like to see films on big screen and in good quality. And they like also the experience of being in a cinema together to experience this film. And also most of the films we show them, as I said, in a festival once or twice or 3 times. So if after that the films are pirated, that's great. I'm happy we are building here, yes, a new audience. And I hope that the people who will discover the films pirated, they will come to Metropolis one day. So I don't think they really, it really affects us.
Just to pick up this with the One Man Village, I remember you were so happy with the DVD also after it was pirated, and we were very proud that the One Man Village was pirated, because piracy is a financial risk to those who do the piracy. I mean, it's a market that we don't share financially, but art house films or complicated films are not usually pirated. I mean, people tell you you can buy everything, but it's not true. You can buy everything that makes money. So after 3 years, when the One Man Village was out in a piracy shop in Beirut, Simon called me immediately and he said we made it. So, because, I mean, I found it was like, finally, it's great. I mean, to have a film that people didn't like the project, later they liked the film, but even pirates found it worth going into the financial risk. I found it great, and especially as Hania said, no, the DVD is going perfect. And I mean, many people who buy the DVD are against piracy, so they would, and also you don't give a present for birthday for somebody, for example, a pirated DVD, you buy the expensive DVD.
To Hania, Metropolis, which cinema was it at our age, I mean, when we were young?
The first Metropolis, the small theater, was Sarulla in Hamra.
Okay.
And the second one, the biggest, the one that you saw
I have
now,
two. Okay.
we moved. We moved in 2008, we moved into this big one, which is Empire Sophie in Al-Shafi'i.
Okay, thank you.
You want to go? You will go?
You're welcome.
Yes, of course.
Going back for the movies, I mean, I live in Israel, I'm Arab, I live in Germany now as well, but I would love to see the movies, and since I don't have the option neither to have it as a DVD nor to see it in cinema, I would love to see it in the internet, but this is absolutely against my will because I love cinema. So I think, I don't know, here I think we need to work on some way to kind of offer us, the viewers, the possibility to see the films in high quality. Of course, the best thing would be cinema, but I mean, the DVD is not getting everywhere. Anyway, I mean, I wouldn't buy a DVD. I would love to rent a DVD. I would love it to kind of Netflix or Amazon or something like this. I would love to rent it there or buy it there, because I don't need a pile of 1,000 DVDs, which I already have. So how do you solve this kind of problem? And I'm a very big fan of Arabic films, whether they're good or bad.
I solve this problem by working with Real Eyes TV. It's a German VOD platform, and for me the whole VOD thing was a big problem because, again, I have films, I have Arab films with the rights for the Arab region. At first glance, VOD seems like a good solution also for rural areas and so on, but in most Arab countries there is no PayPal, or the European VOD platforms work with banks that don't accept Arab credit cards. The thing is not if you have the technology or if you have power cuts. The thing is, do those companies behind it, do they exclude or do they include? And Real Eyes TV is working with all kinds of payment systems over smartphones, and I have no clue of this, and I'm not interested, but I know that they care for this a lot, and they have a big audience in the Arab world because they have systems you can pay with. And when these payment methods change, or some banks close due to embargoes and wars and whatever, closed options, there are new options coming up, and Real Eyes is quite fast in tracing them. And they acquire more and more rights for non-exclusive rights, so not to kind of sit on the rights or to exclusively. So they are ones with, or they are the ones I like to work with, because through them it's possible to reach as many countries as possible.
And with only good films, not only. No, because that whatsoever. So.
Because I need to see the film first. I want to judge if the film is good or bad. I need to see it first. Okay.
But I actually have a question. do you think the distribution, the Arab films, do they circulate well in festivals in Europe? Is that a good way of seeing these films on the big screen?
They do, but especially since the uprisings from late 2010, there were so many films produced, and the festivals still have a limited screen, and you don't see all the films, and those films who go like everywhere, or we feel they go everywhere, it's maybe 3 a year out of a production of 500-600. I mean, if we count like all the films that are made now with NGO money and so on, I think it's important to try to get them into festivals, and I'm trying also to get DVDs to festivals, because I know that many programmers, if they can't program them in this specific festival edition, because all over the program has another focus, or if films are very special, they drop out many times because you don't know where to program them.
Untrue.
I have a lot of short films with them. All the programmers tell me. Yeah, we talk later, but also other festivals told me too special in terms of being very different can be a problem. But I know many programmers or many people who are in preview commissions who make, while previewing, an extra pile for programming elsewhere, or for special film weeks or whatever. So they should go to as many eyes as possible, I think.
So do you expect in the future to circulate more in a film festivals? Now you said like 3 or like films, but in the future there will be more or less? No, I mean,
there are much more films overall, but those films everybody heard about, or many people saw, because this one film went to 20, 30, 40, 50 festivals. It's not many. And it's rare, because there are so many films. So you find 10 to 20 festivals for most films, but it's too little festivals to make an international buzz about a film. I expect that much more films will be produced, or that the production will still increase, but I don't think that it helps the films to be visible at all. Not at all. I think it's suffocating the films. It's too much.
And I would add, if I can, that again, to insist on what you said, I think very precious on films not talking some kind of an existing international cinematographic language, that even, let's say, some films that are produced in whatever Arab countries can meet difficulties within their own country of production. And not only because it would be scandalous, but also because of the writing of the film. Well, Hassan, I'm making at least this film and the one before, so it's a break in his way of making films. He's shifting, and it's not easy. I mean, even for Lebanese or Arabic audience, and I think this is important, the quality of the film itself. So I'm not sure we should imprison the films.
Yeah, I wanted to say, first of all, I congratulate you for the job you're doing, Irit, because I know that distributing Arab films in Europe and outside their own countries is almost impossible. So I think you're doing a great job. But I feel that your job is not only distribution, it's more than that. You know, just to have a film accepted in one of the big festivals, or it's almost impossible. But something I want to share also, that yesterday I went to see Taxi, for example, and for me it was a tremendous experience, because there were, I don't know how many people in this big hall, 3,000, 5,000, I don't know, but the people were laughing, you know, and really they were so happy watching the film. So when you're saying that You know, the people from, they don't, they feel very, they're not happy with what they see, they feel disappointed. This is exactly the opposite what I felt yesterday while watching Taxi, you know, in this huge theater. And I don't know, so maybe festivals play a role in creating the audience for that director, or, you know, over the years. It's a very complicated issue.
Yeah, I mean, Taxi is Iranian, they function differently, but this morning at 9 o'clock, I had a phone call by somebody, by a friend, a colleague, a friend, and a friend of his was staying with him, and she saw the Palestinian film, Al-Hubb al-Sarika ma ba'rif shu, the love and theft and very other entanglements. She saw it, and she was so first upset and then confused that some people laughed in the film, that she called me at 9 o'clock Sunday morning to ask me about what I think about the film. I said I didn't have a chance to see it yet, and she started telling me the film, and she found it was very heavy and sad. I never woke up as energetic as this morning. I was laughing. It was so funny what she told me. I can't wait to see the film. And she said, but why are you laughing? Everything I tell you is frustrating. And I said, it's so funny. But she didn't think about the Palestinian situation. And the more she told me, she started laughing herself because she started reconsidering the film. So I think it goes in all directions. But sometimes people are so... They have an urgent need to clarify something about a film, and I mean, luckily not everybody has my phone number to call me at 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. But for me, it's a very... I was like, if I would consider to take this film, good, she called me. Yeah, because when I watch it as a distributor, I watch it directly with a second pair of eyes. It doesn't say I would not distribute it, it's just the question, how would I do this?
It's funny. It's a very funny film.
Yeah, I think it sounded funny.
Hi, my name is Louise. I'm one of the actresses in the movie you've just mentioned. I'm French. I was in Palestine, and it just happened that I had a small part in the movie. So I was at the screening, the first one. And I wondered, after watching the movie, I found it really funny. And I wanted to cry at the same time because I was so nostalgic. I wanted to go back to Palestine. And I was wondering, indeed, how would a Westerner audience feel about the movie? Because there are many things I understand, because I spent like 6 months in Palestine and Jordan. So I've got the codes. But then it's true that for a Western audience, some things are missing. So I don't know how you can... I'm really interested about understanding how you can promote those movies, because as you mentioned earlier, during festivals it's very easy, but then what happens next? So.
But it's also a question how to promote it to the festival. I mean, sometimes you need to open the channel, and for a while it was filmmakers refused to give any political background because they said, no, the film speaks for itself. But how, I mean, if I tell you things about Germany, which also in Germany are not very popular or known or much discussed, how could you understand? So now it changed a bit, and people like tell me or ask me, what do you think about the synopsis, or you think this will help people access the film? And then it's trial and error. Distribution is a risk, and it has to do with gambling. And if you don't like risks, and if you don't if you're scared to fall on your nose or to break your nose, you have a problem as a distributor, you will quit it. So I don't do skiing, and I don't do this whitewater rafting, or however it's called. I distribute, so everybody.
Okay, I have a question for Hania. Hania, you said you started with festivals, and then you had a venue, and then a distribution, and you do Metropolis now for 9 years, and both of you said you're interested to have a broad diversity of films, and I was wondering, after 9 years, if there's also the question of film history. Is film history also something you're interested in, and are you going? Are old films, old Arab films, for example, still available to show in Metropolis? And are you doing these things too?
Old films, yes. Well, yes. Just like Youssef said, I copy everything he says. When I started, I had no idea how to program, like really no, because unfortunately Metropolis was somehow the first art house cinema in Lebanon ever. So, and I didn't know how to program. I didn't know what the audience were expecting and how to address this audience. No clue. So, so we started by showing recent titles, which was the safest bet. Films that were in festivals. Then slowly you start taking risks, and very early we started doing retrospectives, and they were a huge success. But of course, when you also do a retrospective of Antonioni, you're not really taking any risk. Slowly we started also to dig into the small treasures of world cinema, but also regional, and start to we showed a lot of, for instance, classics from here, from Germany, but for the audience to accept them and to attract, especially a young audience, we created a ciné-concert, which is something very, I think, popular here and in Europe, everywhere, but for the Arab world, it was like a concert and a movie at the same time. Yes, and it worked pretty well. So now I think there are a lot of young people who discovered all the German silent movies through ciné-concert. We also managed to do a ciné-concert on a big Egyptian classique, The Mummy, by Shadi Abdessalam, which was also a success. And we started also a few years ago to work on Lebanese films from the 60s and the 70s. And this was a big challenge, because ironically, the Lebanese audience, the cinephile and others, they know the classics of world cinema, but they know nothing about Lebanese cinema, because there's no cinematheque in Lebanon. So somehow we are becoming also a cinematheque. I have to say that when you start in a project like Metropolis in Beirut, you cannot say, I have a mission. We had no mission. We started something, and the mission was built throughout the years. And now we are slowly going towards creating a cinematheque, because we realized that there are some very important films, and it's a pity, and it's a disaster even, that we are totally disconnected from our history and our memory.
I thought so. I was sure you will answer like this.
Hania, thank you for this answer. I think we cannot have more questions.
Here?
Maybe one?
Here's one.
So she says.
Are you? Me?
Oh,
okay.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Here in Germany or Europe, we have sort of municipal cinemas, or cinemas that are funded by the city or even the state sometimes, because they think it's an important thing to have culture in the city, which is good for the city, and it's subsidized. Do you think that it might be possible one day in Cairo or in Beirut that you get sort of funds to build up your work and to continue? You just mentioned yourself a cinematheque that goes into the direction that they realize how important your work is, and that they give maybe money one day. Do you think?
So I
it's
really
a political
have to,
question.
I have to. Well, we don't have any public funds in Lebanon. We don't even have a president right now. So occasionally we didn't have governments or no. So I'm not sure we have a Ministry of Culture right now or not. I don't know. So that's dramatic. That's very sad. And I wish that one day there will be something like a national fund or a ministry or something that would support our work. It would give us more credibility. It would give us more sustainability. It would give us a lot. But until then, we are doing what we're doing, and we are finding a way, alternative ways to survive.
Same for us.
Yeah, it deserves applause, I think. Thank you, Hania. Thank you, Irit. Thank you, Youssef. And we wish you the best